Hello and welcome to this Filbert Flies review of Terrainy Studios' Samos scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator. You join me here on the VOR DME approach, heading directly for the airport at 90 degrees to the runway. This is one of the world's most challenging approaches, so as well as giving you the opportunity to admire the surrounding scenery, I'm starting with an approach to give you an idea of what you're in for. At 4 DME from the SAM VOR, round about here, you'll see me make a left turn to start the visual portion of the approach to runway 9. All the landmarks you need to complete the visual approaches to this airport are included with the scenery, as is a guide on the approach procedures. So, with practice, you'll get there. I've not quite got there yet, but I think this is a passable attempt, and I believe that slightly imperfect approaches once in a while make me more relatable. So with that, I'll be quiet now and let you enjoy the approach and landing in peace, but I'll speak to you again when we're on stand and take you on a tour of this airport in different weather and lighting conditions before finishing up with my all-important opinion. See you shortly.
Retard. 5.
So here we are, welcome to Samos. The sweat has almost dried on my palms, my heart rate's almost back down to normal, so I think I'm ready to give you a tour around the airport, and we'll start off over here at the main terminal building. So the quality of the modelling and texturing is pretty high at this airport. You'll notice we've got a nice amount of detail included, such as these planters down here, and the railings, stairs and ground surfaces here look very nice indeed. The texture work on the outside of the building is pretty good. It does get a little bit blurry if you zoom in really close, but in general these are nice, good quality, high resolution textures. You'll also notice that we have some interior modelling and some transparent tinted glass, so let's take a quick look inside. Well, it's nice to see the amount of detail that's in here. Again, the textures are plenty sharp enough, and we have some stairs, we have some rope barriers, some boarding desks at the gates there, and overall it looks very nice. The first floor is also modelled, although not to quite as high a standard, and there are certain things missing. But if we move out to the front of the airport, you'll notice that we have interior modelling here as well. We've also got a really nice amount of detail in the landside areas. We've got parked cars, signs, seats, air conditioning units, a couple of coaches, and overall they've done a really nice job of recreating the front and the back of this airport. On the eastern end of the terminal building we have this luggage facility, which is nice to see, and we've got a good amount of ground clutter around the apron, including baggage trolleys, tractors and that sort of thing. Also, this having now become my thing for some reason, it would be remiss of me not to mention the fence. So the airport is entirely enclosed by this fence, and they've done a really nice job in modelling it. It looks very realistic. Away from the main terminal building, we've got some really nicely modelled and textured peripheral buildings. I'm a particular fan of the texture on the walls of this fire station here, which is really nicely implemented. You'll have noticed that we have a 3D fire engine poking out, and we've got some texturing inside as well. Continuing east, we have the Echo Aviation offices and fuel farm, and we've got a fuel tanker parked outside, as well as some more vehicles just behind it. And over here you'll see we have another type of fence with razor wire instead of barbed wire on top of it, and again they've done a really nice job of modelling that. As you can see, the interior modelling isn't limited to the terminal. We have a very nicely modelled tower interior as well. Let's talk ground textures. So there are things I like about the ground textures at this airport and things I don't like so much. Let's start with the negatives. You'll notice that around the stands we have discoloration where the aircraft park up, and that to me looks a bit smudgy and blurry and could do with a little bit more definition. On the other hand, we have really nice bits of detail like these spills over here, and the ground markings look really nice as well. They are really crisp, you can get down nice and close to them without seeing any blurriness whatsoever, and they're not too bright and cartoony, they look just about right to me. I can't speak to the accuracy of the parking stands. This airport has been remodelled since both the Google and Bing satellite images were taken, but they certainly match the taxi charts, so they're in the right place if nothing else. The grassy areas are very nicely done, they look very realistic, as do the taxiway signs, such as this one here, this A2 hold point, and I really like the detail in this drainage ditch here. That's really nice and crisp and looks very, very lifelike. I can't really comment on the accuracy of the runway textures and markings because, like the apron, the runway's been redone since the Google and Bing satellite images were taken. What I will say is I'm not a big fan of these rubber marks. They don't look terribly lifelike. They are a bit too patchy and intermittent. But it's a small point, and overall, on approach to this runway, it looked reasonably good. Here's what Samos looks like after dark, and I have to say I'm very impressed with it. These floodlights create very convincing pools of light over the apron, and the terminal building looks fantastic as well. You'll notice that the inside is nicely lit, and we've also got these downlighters on this passageway outside, which look very nice indeed. And if you're someone who enjoys admiring your parking from within a terminal building, I think you'll be pretty happy too. The lighting in here is pretty realistic, and you get a lovely view out the windows of the apron. Here's Samos in the rain, and the ground textures look very, very good when they're wet. They work very well with the default puddles and reflections. You will of course get a little bit of window popping in poor visibility, and as I've said before, that's something that Asobo needs to fix. There's nothing that developers can do about it as far as I'm aware. As well as the airport itself, Terrainy Studios have included a number of custom buildings and landmarks in the surrounding area, focusing on the visual reference points needed to complete the two visual approaches. So this is Iraeon Village, which we flew over earlier on the approach to runway 09. This is the Army Camp, by which you should be at 1,100 feet on the approach to 09. And this is Miloi Village. I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the pronunciation. But if you get here, you've come too far. You should have turned right before it. And this is the greenhouse by which we should have been and almost were stable at 400 feet on final for 09. On the opposite side of the airport, we have the Pythagorean Village and Marina, which are important visual reference points for the approach to runway 27. So the modelling and texturing of these buildings is not quite as good as that at the airport, and nor should it be. Don't forget, these are for you to fly over rather than to come and inspect up close like I'm doing. But overall, I'm pretty impressed with the amount of detail they have included. So, Terrainy Studios Samos, what's the verdict? Well, overall I'm very impressed. The airport buildings are very nicely modelled and textured, and it's nice to see some time has been spent creating a realistic landside environment as well. I'm slightly less impressed with the ground textures. Although there are some nice little details included and the markings look good, overall the ground doesn't feel all that realistic due to the blurry patches and slightly odd rubber marks on the runway. The night lighting is spot on, however, and it's great to see the amount of work that has gone into the neighbouring villages and other landmarks around the airport. It's also worth mentioning the useful approach briefing document included with the download. I'd have found this approach even harder without it. If you like Greek islands and you like challenging approaches, then this airport is certainly one to put on your Christmas list. So that's it. I hope you found this review useful. If you have, please do click the like button and consider subscribing to my channel for more reviews, live streams, tutorials and more. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon here on Filbert Flies. Bye bye.